As we walk around Biola's campus, we're often walking by global students from different countries and different cultural contexts without realizing it. And today I'd like to share some of these global student stories with you. Hello, my name is Hannah Larson, and I'm a cross-cultural journalism student here at Biola. And these are some global student stories that I'd like to share with you. So here's a little bit about the background of the project. My background is in intercultural studies and in cross-cultural studies within the journalism major. So for this project, I interviewed 9 different Biola students, all from different cultural backgrounds. 1 was from South America, 3 were from the continent of Africa, and 5 were from Asia. And the specific countries are listed here below. 1 student was from South Korea, but her family served as missionaries in Kyrgyzstan, so I got to hear a little bit about both of those cultures. I'd like to start with Juan from Equatorial Guinea, and he's from the city of Mitom, and he's the youngest of 15 children in his family. And he left Equatorial Guinea and went to China on scholarship to study masters in engineering. And then he returned to Guinea, worked in aviation for a while before deciding to come to Biola to study intercultural studies. And his visa to the US was approved after 2 different denials. It was really a crazy story that he went through. But his pastor gave him money ultimately for the plane ticket over to Biola, and he's been here ever since studying intercultural studies. And Juan talked about GSPD program here at Biola, that's Global Students Program and Development, helping him with banking and driver's license and the different documentation that he needed to be here. And then this is Aspen Ha, and she's from South Korea, but she and her family lived in Kyrgyzstan for many years as missionaries. And she grew up first in a rural area and then moved to the capital city and lived there for 5 years. And Aspen talked to me about what it's like to be a third culture kid, so someone who grew up in a culture different from either of her parents and the impact that that's had on her. And one interesting thing that Aspen talked about is that as an English and theater major, she's noticed that there aren't many diverse voices in literature here in the English program, and that's something that she wished was highlighted more, was stories from different cultures around the world. My next person to talk about is Jesslyn Sudarta, and she's a student from Indonesia. She describes herself as Chindo because she has both Chinese and Indonesian heritage. She grew up in the city of Surabaya in East Java, and that was a more urbanized part of the country. She said that DBC actually came and spoke at her high school, and that was how she first became acquainted with Biola. She also had a friend's older sister who came here for school, and that influenced her decision to study here. And upon coming to Biola, Jesslyn has been a part of the Biola Indonesian Students Association, and she said that that was a really pivotal moment for her, that they have helped her throughout her transition to the United States, and also in running errands and just getting things for her so that she could become accustomed to the US. And one other thing that Jesslyn talked about was that sometimes she feels like hers and other Indonesian students' friendliness is misinterpreted at Biola. She said she feels that other people feel like she's asking them for things, when instead she said, no, we just want to be connected and we want to get to know other students better. And I'd like to share some key points from some other people that I talked to. So on the left is Perez Balukademe from Uganda, and he spoke about his experience of culture shock coming to Biola and just a completely new continent, a new country where he knew no one, and what that was like for him to experience culture shock. He talked about struggles with the language, and that even though he knew English, he said that it was exhausting throughout the day to constantly have to translate in his mind from his native language into English, back to his native language, and just the mental toll that that takes on him throughout the day, which I thought was really interesting. Joshua is in the top right, and he's from South Korea. He's here studying in the MDiv program, and he also spoke about the difficulty of the language barrier, particularly in writing. He said that speaking came easier, but that writing was more challenging, but that he's been able to go to the writing center and get help from there and from professors. Ya, in the bottom right-hand corner, is Ya Bei from Myanmar, and he's also studying in the MDiv and intercultural program. And he has a remarkable story. Both of his parents passed away when he was very young, He grew up in an orphanage in Myanmar called Mita Yin Kwin, and he has worked there for several years before coming to Biola. And he talked about God's faithfulness to him throughout the visa process, the challenges of getting the money that he needed, the documents, and then just the logistics of flying to Biola, finding housing here, but spoke about God's faithfulness through all of it. And not pictured is Alice from Nigeria, and she spoke very powerfully about the need for respecting other people from different intercultural backgrounds. She said that here in the United States, she said there's a cultural lack of respect for others, and especially for elders as well, that she didn't notice in Nigeria, and talked about the importance of that. So after hearing these stories, I wanted to pose a few questions to you that I've been working throughout this project, and that is, who has shared their story with you, and who is someone that you could talk to learn more about their different background, especially interculturally. And another thing I've learned throughout this project is to ask more questions and to listen respectfully to the many stories of neighbors around us. It's remarkable the different stories that people have, and it just takes the time. We just need to take the time to sit down, ask, and listen, and we can learn a lot about the neighbors around us. And one starting point that's been very helpful for me throughout this project is Global Faces of Biola. And this is an Instagram page that basically does a lot of what I was doing in this project. So there's pictures of international students, and then they get to have a short caption where they just say in their own words what their experience has been, both in their home country, coming to Biola, and the transition there. And that's a GSPD initiative with these short stories from international students. So I'd encourage you to look at that and to see more stories of global students and understand their experience better through that. And then I would also like to highlight a few other global student stories. All of these have been published on the Point website, so you can look at them there, see photo, audio, and read more thoroughly about their stories. So Zihan is from China, and she's also in Talbot. She talked about that she wants to bring a more Eastern perspective on biblical interpretation. She said that at Biola, it's been in classes a lot of Western, of course, perspective on biblical interpretation, but that she wanted to see more of a synthesis between East and West. A second global student is Carolina Musi, and she's from Paraguay, and she talked about following God's leading to Biola. And even though it's a completely new cultural context, just some of what she's been able to learn, as well as bring in from her home culture here. And the final person that I talked to was Jana from GSPD, and she gave some helpful and just practical ways that students can connect here at Biola, including with GSPD and then with different focus groups that they have for international students. And I wanted to end with a verse that has been impactful to me throughout the project, and especially in light of Alice's statement. And that's Micah 6:8, which says that he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? That we act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And I think that if we look at this through an intercultural lens, we can see that we can treat other students with humility, and rather than putting our own culture above someone else's, we can have the humility to stop and listen and take the time to learn about another person's culture and to see what we can glean from that. So thank you.